Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. I'm so excited today to be in conversation with my dear friend, Wietske Merison. I think I said that, and with a good accent. And we are going to be talking about the First Islamic Oratorio by a female artist and composer. That is a lot to unpack in one sentence. So I actually really wanted to start by asking you if you could tell us, like, what exactly is an oratorio? Is it the same thing as an opera, or just introduce it so for people who don't know?
Yeah, of course. So an oratorio is a big choral composition, meaning that it's written for a choir. Usually oratorios take about an hour, maybe even an hour and a half, so they're quite long works, and they're always about a sacred topic. A sacred text inspires them. Mostly they're based on scripture. They're different from an opera in the sense that they're not theatrical, so usually there's no characters. They're performed in a concert setting, and the word oratorio stems from the Latin orare, oratore, or orare, which means prayer. So in Dutch, we refer to the oratorio by the Latin root of oratorium, meaning the place of prayer. And this relates both to the fact that oratorios were often performed in places of prayer because they were such sacred works. But it also, I like to think of the oratorio as a place of prayer in and of itself. When you're performing it, you're in a place of prayer. Yeah, so that's just a little introduction.
Thank you. And so when we say that there's nothing like it in the Islamic space, is that really right? Like in the Western space, there's, and when I say Islamic, I mean, well, we'll get into that more, but when we say it's the first Islamic oratorio, is that right? What does that really mean?
Yeah, I think that's both right and wrong, probably. So if we look at the Islamic tradition, there has been a long-standing tradition of sacred music. If you think about the Qawwali tradition, or the nasheeds out there, the practice of Sama or Nawa in Morocco, dhikr traditions, all of these are musical in their own ways. So it's definitely, I wouldn't claim to be the first Muslim artist working with sacred song. But the oratorio tradition is a European tradition, a tradition of Western European classical music. And I think there it would be more fair to say that possibly, as far as I'm aware, this is the first oratorio written that is based on the scripture of the Quran. So there are many oratorio out there that are, of course, also Islamic in the topics they discuss. So there's a famous oratorio, for example, written by Mendelssohn about the prophet Elias, which you could say, of course, is Islamic in its nature. That's a Muslim prophet we know and love. But of course, Mendelssohn was Christian. So he approached that from his Christian tradition. But of course, this is where you see that these traditions of praise are not always black and white, because we also have a relationship with the prophet Elias. So I hope that this oratorio, rather than wanting to really promote it as the first Islamic oratorio as much, more so seeing it as a work of worship, of sacred music, in line with both that Islamic tradition, but also that European tradition of sacred music, simply existing somewhere in the meeting of those worlds.
Great, and we'll get into the story of why you did this. But first I wanted to just see if we could play the first piece, Bismillah, to give people a sense of what that is, what it feels like. Because when the first time I listened to it, when I first heard oratorio, I didn't quite know exactly what it was. And then when I listened to the first one, I was like, oh, okay. So we're going to get into the story of what the oratorio meant for you personally. But first, I'd like to play Bismillah, which is the first piece in the 15.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God. In the name of God. In the name of God. The merciful, the compassionate, the merciful, the compassionate, the merciful has sent a mercy to mankind, a mercy, he sent a mercy to mankind. Rahmatan lil alamin, rahmatan lil alamin. Bismillah.
You know, when I listen to that, it is just stunningly divine. I mean, there are just so many different pieces of it to take in, and it touches your heart and your soul immediately. And I think what strikes me the most is knowing that you sang all of the parts and you performed all the percussion, you composed all the music, you did the story. I mean, it is truly a magnificent achievement. And I wanted to ask you, what inspired you? Like, what made you want to do this? What did you have in mind?
Yeah, I think for me, if we want to really get down to the core of what my intention was for the project, it was to send my salawat to honor and further explore my relationship with the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, in a way that is authentic to who I am, authentic to where I'm from, authentic to my perceptions of beauty and my framework of beauty, how I perceive beauty, which is of course culturally dependent, in a way that honors also the traditions of my ancestors and the beauty of the traditions of my ancestors, whilst also recognizing that in some ways I have taken a different path. Yeah, so in essence, this is my way to, this project was my way to hopefully further connect with the Prophet Muhammad.
You know, and it's so meaningful that when you talk about the oratorio, this oratorio connecting sort of the European tradition and the Islamic, you know, you as a convert, you know, I mean, there's so much meaning for a convert, you know, to create something like this. And I was just wondering if you could share with us, you know, like it's such a beautiful way to bridge the gap across cultures and all of that. Can you share some of your thoughts?
Yeah, I feel like as converts, we have a unique way or perspective from which to connect to the early Muslims, the first Muslims, who were in essence all converts, right? So this is a story of an epic group of converts who changed the course of history. And I think really there are aspects of the seerah that, of course, anyone who dives into that divine sense of compassion and mercy can access. But it's always easier to access from your own lived experiences. So really understanding what it is like to leave behind one framework, one reference of thought, and to enter the world as if you're entering it anew with a new paradigm. To really understand what it means like to maybe lose members of your family and get to call other people brothers and sisters in that true sense of what that means. I think oftentimes it's converts who are both blessed and cursed with that experience. So I think in that sense, then trying to also, just like we see that the early converts in Mecca and Medina had to distinguish between what is beautiful in the traditions I grew up with, what will stay within the realms of Islam now that I'm a Muslim, and what may change, right? I feel like that's the same way in which I was interacting with this sacred tradition of sacred music. My grandparents sang oratorios in a choir together. That's how they met.
Wow.
So this is really something that's like, this is the sunnah of my people, right? My family. And so we see too that the early Muslims had to make choices about what is going to stay within the realm of Islam, what are we going to change, what are we going to improve. But when you see that there was already a relationship with the Kaaba before Islam, before the Prophet Muhammad started reminding the people of Islam, right? So many of the values that were emphasized in the Islamic project were already there because Islam is something natural and human, right? So I feel like in many ways, in working on this project and in trying to find the beauty in the traditions of my ancestors, that was also just a very creative and real way to, in my own way, connect to that process of not breaking with everything, with all the roots of who you are. Some of those stem from that same beautiful fitra, that same beautiful natural understanding of goodness and purity, I believe. But more so purifying, I guess. Yeah.
And it's such a beautiful title, Mercy, which is so all-encompassing. Can you share sort of your overarching vision for what you created? Because you've completed part 1, and there's a part 2, and there are 15 pieces associated with part 1. And all of that is now available on YouTube for people to see as of just a couple of days ago. It's very exciting. Can you just share with us sort of like the overarching narrative and how you decided on how to, set up what you were going to present and create?
Absolutely, yeah. So much of it was a creative process that just slowly unfolded as I was going. So I didn't have it all thought out before. I first got the spontaneous idea of writing an oratorio. I'm not a classical composer, right? I have written some things, but this project, if you would have told me 2 years ago I would have done this, I would have been laughing. Maybe I'm still laughing. But I was inspired. I went to a concert of Handel's Messiah, an oratorio about from Christian perspectives on the life of the Prophet Jesus, Isa, alayhi salam. And I was just inspired. I kept having this question: what would an oratorio about the Prophet Muhammad sound like? Oh. And I just started writing that night. The next day we were going to leave on a road trip. And I didn't drive the next day because I barely slept. Because I just had this urge, I needed to write this. And the first thing I knew is it would start with Bismillah. It would start with the Basmala. And I think that's where all else came from, because everything starts with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And I think also just approaching the story of the Prophet Muhammad as a story of mercy, right? Both the core of that Rahman and Rahim, having that be the central lens. That's really the only thing that I knew as I was getting into the project. So zooming out, the oratorio consists of 30 songs, 15 of which are now out there as a part of the first part, and the second 15 will be released as a part of part 2. And that distinction between part 1 and part 2, for me, before the start of part 1, we are in the realm of the divine. We are with that beautiful, the moment before the word is spoken, right? So as the divine is sending down this mercy to mankind, which is really the theme of that, of the first song of the oratorio. Then we have the first part of the life of the Prophet, all the way from his birth until the moment of the Isra wa Miraj, so the heavenly ascension, when once again we find this beautiful moment of divine nearness, where the Prophet Muhammad meets with God, is back in that realm of the divine. And that's where we take our break, which I believe is also truly a breaking point in the life of the Prophet. It's almost like two lives, because he got to go back. And then the first song teaser of the second part is called Return, because then we return. The message is not done. Return, beloved one. That's how it starts. Then at the end, the second part of the oratorio ends with the death of the Prophet. Once again, the return of the beloved one to the beloved. So that is the overarching story. And I decided early on that inspired by Handel's Messiah, which was at that point the only oratorio I really knew, that I wanted to have 4 soloists, two men, 2 women. So kind of on the basis of that, I started thinking, okay, what could be the different songs? What are the aspects of the seerah that speak to me? Because, as I said, it was very much a personal project of trying to connect with the story of the prophets. So I started looking into different perspectives, started doing my research, reading, and that's how I, in the end, came up with the 15 different songs.
It's amazing. What really struck me listening to them, I mean, I know you have a few that you'd like to highlight and give us a little bit of insight about, but I was really struck by the songs about Khadijah and the power of that female voice. And the stories, I mean, as you write them, are so touching, because you're taken with music to this, ethereal divine place, and you're learning about the relationships and just the beautiful, feeling, like you feel like you're there. I just wanted to see if you could tell us a little bit about your inspiration in terms of like creating the voice of Khadijah and some of the other things, and then we'll get into the highlights.
Yeah, I think as a woman trying to connect with the story of Prophet Muhammad, I very naturally felt drawn to the women in that story. And of course, part 1, that first part of the Prophet's life, Khadijah's voice is central. Half of the songs in the first part either are sung in Khadijah's voice from her perspective, mention Khadijah, refer to Khadijah musically or in terms of the text. So she is the first part, if anything, and I think that's maybe also just because I feel like for all sorts of reasons, oftentimes the story of the Prophet Muhammad is told from also focusing on the important men in that story, which of course there were important men, but again, it's just a personal project. I was trying to relate, and naturally I sought out the women in that story. So yeah, Khadijah plays a very central role, and I think connecting with the story of Khadijah as the first of all believers, as the mother of all believers, I noticed, and maybe later on we can talk a bit more about some themes, but the theme of Khadijah is very strong, the musical motif of Khadijah throughout the whole oratorio. And even in part 1, when we already have had the song of her passing, her motif stays very strong, because for me, in the way I relate to the story, she was just almost like a metaphor for the beloved one. The one, whenever the whispers came, whenever the theme of waswas comes, which is one of the other musical motifs, it's almost always paired with Khadijah's motif of hush now. Khadijah's line in the oratorio, saying, I have faith in you, being the first to say, I have faith in you. This resonates in all of the other times later on throughout the oratorio. Other people will say, I have faith in you. But she was the first. That's her motif. So even later on, the voice and the motif of Khadijah as the beloved one, as the place of comfort, of sakina, as the example of what a marriage can look like, is very strong, and it was a way for me to connect with that story.
That's so beautiful. And tell us about some of the other things that you wanted to highlight, that you said as you know, the composer, the artist, you know, you understand the motifs and all the little details that maybe a listener like me might not pick up. Like, share us a little bit of the insight and tell us which ones you wanted to highlight.
Yeah, so I think in general, this is a very fun thing for a composer or anyone who works with music to play around with, because you get to tell a story in terms of the lyrics, in terms of the text, but you also get to tell a story in terms of the music. So one of the things I've sought as a way to tell different aspects of the story is to link certain parts of the seerah with one another that I felt were thematically linked, but I couldn't necessarily link in terms of the lyrics, but more so in terms of the melodies that come back, or the motifs or the themes. So for example, the strongest theme throughout the whole oratorio is the Bismillah. So it keeps coming back naturally. Also, just as a reminder that every single moment is created within that sphere of mercy. Of course, mercy is the title of the oratorio. On the artwork of the cover, it says the Bismillah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful. That's a strong theme, but also the theme of divine revelation in general is established in that first song. So the same melody that is used to and the same rhythm that is used to say in the name of God in the first song is also used in Read, the first song, the fourth song, which is the first revelation. So whereas the first song, it is mentioned, in the name of God, Allah, Allah. In Read, we hear, read in the name of your Lord, Allah, Allah, who from a clot of blood brought you forth. Right? So it's the same motif. And then when we go towards the climax of the first part, it's rise in the name of your Lord. But all of these events are connected also as an angelic interference, as the divine literally stepping into the physical world in a very with a very strong presence, a noticeable presence. And yeah, I try to make a musical connection between these moments as well, as I did with other songs as well, but we can get to that when we get to the specific songs.
One of my favorite is number 7, People. Can you sing a little bit of that?
Yeah.
That's like my favorite motif.
Yeah, so this is indeed a motif that keeps coming back and will also be very present in the second part.
Yeah.
It's the motif of dawah, if anything, so of spreading the message, of teaching. When the Prophet Muhammad first takes up this role of actively accepting prophethood. This is in the 7th song, the opening, which is also the revelation of Surah Al Fatiha, combined with this sort of moment in the life of the Prophet where he accepts his prophethood. And yeah, he starts out in my oratorio, which of course is not a literal, it's a creative interpretation of the story, saying, my people, say God is one. My people, say God is one. It's a thing we've been singing around all the time. And this is a motif that comes back whenever I want to highlight that in that part of the story of the Prophet, there is the story was spreading, the story of Islam was spreading. And slowly on towards the second part of the oratorio, that line will change from my people to all people, as we also see that there was a conscious shift from first focusing on the Prophet's own community to then being inspired to also spread throughout the nations, throughout the land, after that own community had been well established.
That's incredible. So catchy, because like I was telling you, every time I listen to your music, it hooks into my brain. So the minute I take my dog out, whatever I was just listening to starts playing. And so my people has been in my brain for the last week. Tell us about the first one part or piece that you would like to highlight, and give us some insight into the story. Which one is that?
Yeah, I would like to take a look at To Each Their Rite.
Okay, so here is To Each Their Rite.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Oh, you obscure the light, our faith and yours do not unite. What you've denied, we say is right. We see things with a different sight. We're opposites like day and night. To each their own, to each their right. Al Kafirun. Oh, you obscure the light, our faith and yours do not unite. What you obscure the light, our faith and yours do not unite. What you obscure is light, to each their own, to each unite. What you obscure is love, to each their own, to each unite. What you desire is love, to each their own, to each unite. What you desire is love, to each their own, to each unite.
It's so beautiful. Before I ask you to tell us what was happening there, I'm just so like moved by the percussion as well. And so I don't know if you can share with us, like when I first heard it, I was like, did you do that too? Like, tell us about that.
Well, all credit for that go to the Pearls of Islam, a wonderful Muslim, two wonderful Muslim women who make beautiful music of praise and also have a drumming school. So Sakila Noir, she taught me percussion.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, I know from her. Some of the percussion I did with physical instruments, and some of them I did more digitally because I don't have a lot of instruments to work with. But yeah, whatever I am able to do, I'm able to do because I've taken lessons with her.
That's amazing. Okay, so tell us about that piece.
Yeah, so anyone with a little bit of musical theoretical knowledge might recognize the form of this song as a canon, meaning that there is a repetitive melody, or a melody that's broken up in several parts that is then sort of layered on top of one another. So I don't know if it's a famous canon over here as well, but like Frère Jacques is one of these canons that most people, at least in the Netherlands, are familiar with. And I think most of the songs in the oratorio are giving expression to a specific part of the story of the life of the Prophet. But there are a couple of songs that are mostly just expressions of specific parts of Revelation, which of course is intertwined with the life of the Prophet. So this song is specifically a musical interpretation of Surah Al Kafirun. And I think Surah Al Kafirun is every convert's nightmare. It's very difficult to memorize. At least maybe I should just talk about myself. But gosh, I remember feeling just very acknowledged when someone told me that even imams prefer to stay away from this one, because it's easy to get tangled up in the little grammatical differences between the different ayat that are, of course, very meaningful and intentional, but difficult to memorize for anyone who is new to Arabic. But there's a beautiful rhythm to Surah Al Kafirun, and I think I immediately thought of the musical form of the canon, because a canon is also just a place where you kind of get lost in the repetition and in the the rhythm. So immediately, I think one of the first things I thought after the Basmala was, I'm going to need to do Surah Al Kafirun as a canon. So I wrote a interpretation of the meaning of Surah Al Kafirun, which you just heard. So, O you who obscure the light, our fate and yours do not unite. What you've denied we say is right. We see things with a different side. We're opposites like day and night. To each their own, to each their right. Which is, most of these words do not occur, right? But the idea of kafara is related to covering up the divine light. So it is connected to, in my own way, of course, what's being said in Surah Al Kafirun without it claiming to be a literal translation in any way, just to make that very clear. But I think it has helped me to connect more to the surah, just trying to explore what is it that there's this musical quality to every surah as well, that I think when we only focus on the text as a text without it being a text with a rhythm or a text with a certain musicality, it's a loss of a potential way to connect to the divine revelation. So that's why I chose the specific form of the canon. And then out of that almost meditative state, that meditative trance that you enter, which I have the exact same way if I recite Surah Al Kafirun over and over and over again. Just this sort of rhythm that you enter into. Out of that arise certain voices, right? And the strongest voice that arises at the end is Ihdina, Ya Allah, Ihdina. Like, guide us, God, guide us. Let us be not amongst the kafirun. And this is also just a very beautiful surah that I wanted to highlight because it is the Islamic foundation for the freedom of religion, right? To each their own, to each their right. Lakum dinukum waliyadin. So yeah, that's the story of that song.
So beautiful. I wanted to ask you about, the power of art and music in helping people to connect, because you started to talk about that. And, here we love to, promote, advance, support Muslim artists. But you see just in this work how, it's such a powerful way to access the whole of the human being. I mean, music is such a universal language. And that's been so, central to so much of the work you've done. I don't know if you want to just say anything more about what that has meant for you as an artist to, create stuff like this to help people connect with God.
Yeah, I feel like, first of all, in order to be creative, you need a sense of safety, right? You need to feel like you can safely explore, engage. And I think that's where Usuli really comes in. Giving me the sense of confidence that it's okay to play. It's okay to play and have fun and explore in that loving, playful manner with these texts that are so dear to our hearts and this tradition. And as long as you come to it with beautiful intentions, it's okay to play. So I think that being said, first of all, I think a lot of that playfulness that brings, that artistic expressions bring, it's so important. It's so important because creativity and intellectual discovery, they're the same thing. They don't go hand in hand. They're the same thing. So in order for us to give our intellect its due, we need to play creatively. We need that's what we need to do. I think.
Maybe this is a good place for me to ask you more about you, because you are involved in so many different kinds of things. And I just wanted to ask, just to share your background with people who aren't familiar, but also to situate, where does the, music and art fall into the universe of all the things that you do and who you are?
Yeah, so I'm blessed to do my doctoral research on Islamic law and environmental justice at UCLA with Professor Abu Fadl as my advisor. That's my day job. No, I'm joking. Which is a very creative engagement, genuinely, especially with the professor as my advisor. I feel, once again, that full sort of creative liberty to intellectually, creatively engage with the subject matter, which is the greatest blessing, truly. Mm-hmm. And as a part of that exercise, I engage with this subject matter in all sorts of ways. One of them is musically, through poetry or arts or painting or whatever. And most of it is just private, because I think also not all art is for sharing, mm-hmm. and some of it is very private. Some of it is, too far, not good. Yeah, because that's what happens when you play. Sometimes you cross a boundary. It's like, no, that wasn't good. Astaghfirullah, try again. Yeah, no,
right,
and that's okay.
Very good.
As long as you're afraid, like. Alhamdulillah for tawbah, right? We don't have to be afraid to make mistakes. We have to be afraid to think we're perfect, or we could ever be. So creativity is a very important part of my work, and something I just enjoy, something that makes me feel fully human, something that helps me to connect to Al-Musawwir, the shaper and creator of all. It's a very spiritual engagement.
Alhamdulillah. What other piece would you like to share with us?
I would like to share Turner of Hearts.
Please.
He killed and hit and blew, but seeds of good were planted long before we even knew. He stormed into my house, my brother, oh, what is his name? He heard us read the word of God and said we would be slain. I said, brother, kill, hit, blow, do what you must. Justice will come from the most just. When suddenly his temper went away and I heard his voice asking me to read the word. Yet many would remain, brought suffering and pain. We returned their hate with kindness, but it was in vain. We must not despair, though death is in the air. We must keep walking on our path and trust the light is there. Many would remain, brought suffering and pain. We returned their hate with kindness, but it was in vain. We must not despair, though death is in the air. We must keep walking on our path and trust the light is there.
Beautiful. So tell us about that one.
Yeah, so this song is about the conversion of Umar ibn al-Khattab. And it links to a song that happens before, Torture Me. Mm-hmm. These two are thematically, musically connected. And both of them are the story of Umar told through the voices of two women that were in touch with him. So the first one is Torture Me is told from the perspective of Lubayna, an enslaved woman who was tortured by Umar ibn al-Khattab before he converted to Islam, in which she addresses him as brother. That's a creative interpretation. But recognizing that idea of brotherhood, of humankind, she says, "Brother, kill Hiblo, do what you must. Justice will come from the most just." Later on, in this piece we just listened to, we hear about Omar from the perspectives of his sister, Fatima. And she also addresses him as brother, right? First as brother in the biological sense, because he is her brother. And later on we hear the torturer was slain for a brother he became, right? So we have the moment of conversion. He hears Surah Taha, he says, "It can't be such beauty, Almighty." And then we hear the Shahada, right? Slowly coming to that moment of faith, which again is a way to relate to the story as a convert, right?
Yeah.
Bringing the convert experience into the story. So these are just two very different aspects of the life of Umar ibn al-Khattab. A life that you can only understand if you truly look at it from the perspective of a convert, because it's a dramatic convert story, right? From one of the greatest enemies of the early Muslims, horrendously torturing early Muslims, especially lower class enslaved Muslims, to then becoming the sword of Islam. Is a story that for me was connected to that name of the Muqallib al-Qulub, oh, Turner of Hearts, which is the title of the song. And here this also links to what we were talking about, the creative process. I think this for me was one of the most moving, is one of the most moving parts of the oratorio, because of the convert experience, but also because of getting to call Allah the artist of all arts, which is just recognizing that this beautiful story is written by the best of writers and in an artistic way. That's an art, storytelling. And I think it grounds this whole project in trying to build a relationship with the artist of all arts.
Wow, that's incredible. Thank you for sharing that, because this is something we would only know and fully appreciate. Hearing you explain, so much to reflect on. Thank you. You had one more piece that you wanted to share with us, right?
Yes, I would like to listen to Rise.
Rise, okay. Here's Rise.
Grief weighed heavily on him, grief that caused him to weep. Nights were dark and the days grim, grief swayed him to sleep. When suddenly with him we see an angel, he speaks forcefully. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Rise in the name of your Lord. Rise in the name of your Lord. Who to Jerusalem brings you forth miraculously. You'll rise to see. Spirits heavenly, come close to me. Rise, open up your eyes. Rise, Moses too, Jesus and resigned, a man who looks like you. As you rise upon your way, you bow down and humbly pray, a blessing beyond words to say. In your night you find the day. See both paradise and fire, balance fragile as a wire. See the prophets now long gone, who brought a message from the wall.
Wow. Truly, truly stunning. That's the very last piece of the first part. As I'm listening to it, I'm struck by the power of this medium because it simultaneously engages you intellectually and spiritually and emotionally. It's like everything, and it takes you, it pulls you in and helps you feel all of the different emotions. So what an incredible tool. And then, just hearing the voices, the percussion, everything is it's so masterful. I mean, it's so beautiful. Thank you so much for doing that. Of course, I want you to share about the story too, but maybe we'll hold off on this, but I want to ask you also about the technical piece, because putting all of those different things together, like what was that like? If we could just interject that, and then we'll go back to this piece.
Sure. That was never intended to be the technical piece. So I just thought, I'll write this oratorio, and then magically a choir will appear ready and willing and excited to sing it with a brilliant conductor to lead it all. That didn't happen. I still hope that will happen. That's still my ultimate goal, to have a full mixed choir of men and women and 4 soloists perform the work.
Inshallah.
But it didn't happen. And I knocked on the door, it didn't open, so I went to another door, as we do in life. And I decided I can record this, at least to have it be heard by myself. So I rewrote the entire oratorio for female voices only. And after attending a retreat with the Pearls of Islam, I decided I think it needs percussion. So that's when I added the percussion, keeping in mind that, okay, maybe if that concert setting, maybe it's not a good fit. Who knows? Allahu A'lam, God knows. So I will write it more intimately. I will write it in a way that it can be sung as a gathering, in a gathering of remembrance amongst women who have nothing but their own voices and drums. And God knows where, if it will take on from there. So that brought me with the technical challenge and fun to be a whole choir by myself. Which was just more so a labor of patience than of anything else. So just singing the song all over and over and over again until I had all of the different layers. That was it.
Amazing. And like that song in particular, how long would you say that took?
Oh, this one took a really long time. I think also to compose, because this is the song where all of the different themes come together. So we start off with, like I said, that theme of revelation, the theme of angelic interference, which stems from Bismillah. The first song also comes in Reed. So the same shocking appearance of Iqra, Iqra, that here came in wake up, because this happened in the middle of the night. And then we move on, so I had to merge into the song through the transition of rise. So rise is repeated 7 times throughout the songs to create this metaphor for the rising, the ascension in the heavens. So first rise is heard a couple of times, and then we are in the realm of the meeting with the prophets of the past and the present. And this is where the theme, the melodies of the meeting with Waraqah come back. So then, this is in the which song? In the 6th song, Prophecy. So that's where first I feel like the message of the Prophet Muhammad is connected with the stories of the other prophets of the past, because Waraqah had that knowledge to make the connection and to say, hey, this is Jibreel, this is Gabriel. So here again we see that connection with the different traditions as the Prophet throughout his journey meets with the prophets, with Moses, Musa, all of the prophets. And then we hear rise again, right? So we move on from that theme of the connection between the transitions, the theme of prophecy, and we move on to a space where there's suddenly no rhythm. The rhythm has changed, the rhythm is gone, and it feels like a space beyond words. So we hear all words have gone away, beauty that's beyond all say. Meet me at the tree, bowing for eternity. No more you and no more me. And at that last sentence, we even lose all harmony. So we only have unison left. And then we have nothing. Is that it? Right? The great nothing? Just the sound of knocking, nothing. And I think there's this beautiful tradition that describes the meeting with God as knocking on the door of the divine and then suddenly realizing that you were knocking from the inside. You were already inside. This whole time you'd been inside. And that's the moment when the meeting with Allah starts with just almost a quiet self-realization, just one voice saying, Allah, Allah. So slowly growing into this realization of everything that the divine encompasses. So the Asma al-Husna, the tradition of the beautiful names of Allah, come in Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, of course, first the names of mercy, but then also the other names. And then the Shahada comes in, La ilaha illallah, of course it'd been Allah all this time. But I think the part that always makes me tear up about this part, which is, I'm just going to keep saying that's my favorite part. But it's the fact that it's the exact same build-up, exact same structure as the song before, Sorrow. And Sorrow is the song arguably about the lowest point, the most difficult year of the life of the Prophet, the year of sorrow, the year he lost Khadijah, he lost his uncle, he lost, his idea of safety, constant persecution, boycott, everything was going downhill. And from that point of sadness, of grief, that's where that song comes in. And I wrote sorrow very much randomly, because sometimes sorrow can feel so random, you know. So I just wrote down random notes and then I went with that. And some of the harmonies in sorrow are very painful. And from that arises this song, this voice going, oh, 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 oh. And in sorrow, I call that voice the cry of the reed flute, or the cry of the reed, which very much refers to Rumi's poetry and the idea of being separated, being in a state of agony. Whereas in Rise, in the meeting with Allah, it's the same build-up. I just changed a couple of notes in the random harmonies to create a sense of harmony. And the harmony was very close to the sorrow. Same setup, mostly the same notes. And the melody is the same too. The same, this time it's the song of the soul at peace.
Wow.
The feeling is completely different, but still there's the same sense of recognition. You recognize the musical setup being the same. And I did that purposefully, and there's one more moment in the part 2 that has the same musical setup, and I will reveal what that is as a little teaser, but that's the moment when the Prophet Muhammad decides to forgive upon the return. That ultimate moment of mercy that has the same meeting with the divine setup. Because I think the year of sorrow, the meeting with God, and the moment of forgiveness, those to me are the most divine, most beautiful, merciful moments in the life of the Prophet, and they're connected. But I couldn't find a way to connect them rationally, but they felt connected. So I connected them musically.
Wow. Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that, because it's so deep and so meaningful, and we would never have understood that. But now, like, knowing this, when we listen to it, we'll be reminded. And that's incredible. And that was like the perfect piece to end that part. So let's talk about, if you don't mind sharing, you had intentions going in before the project, and then now where you are looking back, how were those expectations met, and what was surprising, and what do you think now that you've been through the first part, almost second?
I think my expectations are exceeded. I think also it was much harder than I first thought. Just in terms of practically writing the piece and then getting it out there, and that's all going slowly as it's supposed to go. But I think in terms of the intention, the pure intention, the root intention, not the only one, but the original one, of finding my own authentic way to connect with the story of the Prophet Muhammad, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, I think that's exceeded. I think I didn't expect what I would find. And I think I didn't expect how important the stories of those around the Prophet Muhammad would be too, for me, and especially the stories of the women in his life that I didn't know before, or didn't know as intimately, or wasn't able to connect to as much. That has been incredibly powerful. And even just, I think especially doing so in a cultural framework that to me feels like home, that's so important, because then it's a true homecoming. And it doesn't mean that I find that framework somehow superior or anything. No, and absolutely not. It's not that I say that, like, oh, finally we have an oratorio because that's somehow the highest form of art. That's absolutely not. I just want to make it very clear, because and that's why also you can hear all sorts of influences, cultural influences in the music, and I try to work with all sorts of inspirations, but it's just because it's my family's roots, right? And I really hope that, as already is, you know, in Indonesia, they're the most beautiful gamelan sort of praise songs. And my husband's from Bangladesh. One of the first Bangla songs he taught me about, how every morning a bird sings a song of praise, Allah, Allah, which helps our hearts also to sing in joy or to call out. You know, that's a specifically Bengali song.
Wow.
And I'm so happy that now, like as a humble contribution to all of that, just there's a song that is in line with my heritage.
That's so beautiful. And, you know, you've given us, I mean, I'll speak for myself as a convert, right? Another bridge, another example for how to reach, you know, something that, honestly, like a lot of times when you come in as a convert and you feel everything is Arab, right? And that almost you have to be apologetic that you're not Arab to be the right Muslim. This is such a beautiful example that teaches us, reminds us that we started as converts, Muslims, and that, you know, when we bring like our God-given natural beauty wherever we come from, that's authentic and that's right. And it's the timing is so perfect because we're doing the Sirah now here at Usuli, and I know even for me personally, like the idea of learning that the Prophet is alive and you can still build a relationship, and hearing this, and then you performed it for us at the conference, Torture Me, and then hearing, you know, Dr. Farah al-Sharif, you know, tell us about how often people get the La ilaha illallah part, but not the Wa Muhammadan Rasul part. You know, that's me. And so this is an avenue for me and so many others to connect through this beautiful piece of work. So thank you, just from me personally, thank you. This is going to be very instrumental for my development in connecting with the Prophet, peace be upon him too. So thank you, I'm indebted. So tell us what's next from here. What are you hoping? What do you need from all of us to support this beautiful piece of work? What are you hoping to do from here?
So in essence, what I'm still hoping is just to find a choir. I just want to perform it with a choir and give it its proper due as a proper oratorio that doesn't have to be any less than other oratorios. It's different, but not necessarily less, right? Yeah, and I think that's also why I'm seeking this stage, just to get the word out there, to try and see if there might be anyone listening who can help in their own way, who has a concert venue they would love to have the venue of the performance of the First Islamic Oratorio, be it big or small. If they like to sing and they would love to sign up to be on the choir that sings it, if we end up having to create a new choir, that would be beautiful. If they have some skills that could help with making this project real, if they would like to contribute in whatever way, materially or emotionally. I'm not sure what that would look like, but who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be most meaningful, and also just hopefully that it may serve as an inspiration to whoever's listening with whatever background they're listening from, to feel empowered and encouraged to play with the divine and to really get that sense of closeness, and with all the right and beautiful intentions, and the intentions to get closer, the intention to understand and to embody, and to get to know the Quran through the example of the walking Quran, who is our Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. I hope that I will get emails of people who connected to the Prophet in their own cultural, artistic ways. That would make my day every single day.
It's
so, yeah.
Amazing. I mean, like, as we've been listening and talking and experiencing it, you know, it just becomes clearer and clearer to me how important this is as an example of the potential that resides, you know, just in one place: the music, the art, the thought, the storytelling, you know, the creativity, the ability to play and express, the importance of converts. I mean, this work encapsulates so much of the beauty of our message. And, you know, we talked at the conference about originality, creativity, beauty. This is like the embodiment of that, and it allows people to reach and touch and feel something that's, you know, right at the core of our faith. So thank you. May Allah bless you for creating such a beautiful piece of art and sharing it with us, and for taking the time to explain it to us so we can appreciate it even more. So may Allah bless you, and thank you so much.
And thank you so much for letting me speak about it.
Alhamdulillah, may Allah bless it and empower you and empower this beautiful piece to find its light and life. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace.
Assalamu alaikum.